Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I will watch the true life of Harald Fairhair. I have heard of him. I like his nickname, Fairhair. His hair obviously was important. If you're new, welcome. If you're coming back, it's great to have you back. Small disclaimer as always, I have a slight stammer. You probably have seen this so far. Yeah, let's start the video. I'm looking forward to this one. Nice intro.
Welcome to the video. Don't forget to hit that bell icon for weekly videos on historical figures and stories. If you enjoy the content, be sure to subscribe. You may have heard of Harald Fairhair from the TV show Vikings. Here, we see him fight alongside the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, and we also see him fight alongside the sons of Ragnar and the Great Heathen Army. But how much of this is historically accurate according to the sources? Let's have a look and delve into the real life of Harald Fairhair. Harald is mentioned in several sagas, but in this video, I'll be telling you his story, mainly from the Heimskringla saga, but I will
Heimskringla is the best known of the Old Norse kings sagas. It was written in Old Norse in Iceland by the poet and historian Snorri Sturluson, whatever. Wow, in 1178. Yeah, okay, that's a bit later than the guy was actually born and died. The 200 years, I think, wasn't he? 932 he died, so this was over 250 years later. Heimskringla is a collection of sagas about Swedish and Norwegian kings, beginning with the saga of the legendary Swedish the Yinglings. Yes, I've known them. I played them in a game called Crusader Kings 2, followed by accounts of historical Norwegian Harald Fairhair of the 9th century up to date. Okay, wow.
throw in some accounts from other sagas as well.
A big saga.
Many sagas regarding his life are conflicting. However, I will only add accounts of sagas that have additional information and don't interfere with the Heimskringla saga storyline. First, let's have a look at his ancestry. Harald's father was Halfdan the Black, who was king of the Vestfold. Harald and his father Halfdan belonged to the house of Yngling, a mythic family who were descended from the gods. Rulers would often proclaim divine.
First of all, the artwork is great. Was king of the Vestfold. Isn't in Lord of the Rings also a Vestfold? Did Tolkien steal it from there? Maybe you can leave a comment. Halfdan.
Divine lineage to support their reasons to be king and to maintain authority. Harald's mother was named Ragnhild, and in the Skarsabok saga, Harald is described as the great-grandson of Sigurd Snake in the Eye, the son of Ragnar Lothbrok. So Ragnar and Harald most likely didn't fight together in any battles, like in the TV show Vikings, and it's most likely that they weren't alive at the same time, if the sources are to be believed.
I have to watch.
Let's have a look at Harald's early life. He would have been born in the year 850. After the death of his father, it is said he became a stout, strong, and comely man. His mother's brother, Guthorm, became the leader of the army, but many petty kings and jarls would defect from their government, wanting to become independent and have no overlord. King Gandalf was the first to defect.
Sorry, King Gandalf? So Tolkien definitely stole from Norwegian history.
So did King Eystein and his two sons, as did many other lords. This could only mean one thing: war. King Gandalf had only made peace with Harald's father Halfdan a few years before his death. So when he died, he knew his kingdom was weak and was ripe for the taking. King Gandalf's son Haek would march on the Vestfold with 300 men. Harold had heard that Haek was in his lands, and he would rally an army together. Harold at this point would have been a young man in his teens, but he still would lead men and follow his uncle to war. Harold and his uncle Guthorm would meet Haek in his army in a valley, in which they fought a great battle. Harold was victorious, and King Haek fell, along with most of his forces, having been put to the sword. When Harold turned to march back to his own lands, he found that Haek's father, King Gandalf, had come to the Vestfold himself with his own army. Once again, Harold would go into battle, and it was brutal. Most of King Gandalf's men would lay dead, but he would flee back to his own kingdom. Harold had now shown that he was a warrior and would fight to the bitter end, but there were many battles to come.
Wow. Sorry guys. I clicked on it.
Harold would then lay the foundation of his unification of Norway by overcoming 5 kings. Harold and his uncle Guthorm would set fire to the houses of King Eystein's 2 sons, Hogner and Frode. The sons managed to escape the inferno, but were slain soon after by Harold's men. Harold would also murder the 2 upland kings in an ambush at midnight. Upon learning of their meeting place, he would then make war with an old enemy.
They didn't mess around back then, like just laying an ambush and stuff. Like, I get it, it's like old times and they're Vikings, but like that's dark.
King Gandalf, and they fought several battles. In the last of them, King Gandalf was slain, and Harold took the entirety of his kingdom.
Of course.
King Harold had his eyes on the daughter of King Eric of Hordaland. His daughter was Gyda. She was a beautiful and spirited woman. When Harold's messengers delivered a message of his intention to marry her.
Where exactly is Hordaland? Is it still in Norway? Like, but where's it? North, south, east, west? Like, if you could tell me that, that would be great.
She said she wouldn't marry a petty king. She also said, "Will no king here make the whole country subject to him, in the same way as Gorm the Old did in Denmark?" Harold's messengers thought Gyda was arrogant, as she would be lucky to have a man as mighty as Harold, but they left her residence and prepared to depart home. As they were leaving, Gyda shouted, "Now tell King Harold these words. I will only agree to be his lawful wife, upon the condition that he shall, for my sake, subject himself the whole of Norway."
Okay, so she wants power too and wants...
When King Harold's messengers returned to him, they told him what Gyda had said. Harold answered, "This girl has not spoken or done so much amiss that she should be punished, but rather she should be thanked for her words. She has reminded me of something which I did not think of before, and now I make a solemn vow that never shall I cut or comb my hair until I have subdued the whole of Norway, or if not, have died in the attempt." King Harold, now motivated by his vow, prepared for an expedition to the uplands. King Harold ordered everything to be delivered to the flames. Many of the common people begged for peace, and obtained it, on the condition that they joined Harold and became his men.
Makes sense,
he met no opposition until he came to Orkendal. There, an army had assembled, and he would go to battle against King Gritting. Harold would defeat him and make him a prisoner. There, Gritting swore his fealty to Harold, and all the men in Orkendal became Harold's subjects. It is told that Earl Hakon Grudgetgarson came to King Harold from Irjar and brought a great crowd of men into his service.
Okay, that's
Then,
good.
King Harold went to Golardar and had a great battle in which he slew 2 kings and conquered their dominions.
Is he
However,
pronouncing
more
the names
kings
right?
would set upon Harold
Please
with
tell
their
me.
armies. One was the king of Verendal, the
Okay.
second ruled Skorn, and the third ruled the Sparbigja district, and the
What I often wonder is, did they really have this kind of tattoos, and how did they do it back then?
fourth over the Ayin Idre. The 4 kings marched against Harold,
4 kings.
but he won the battle. Some of those kings fell, and others fled. At this point, all in all,
Okay.
Harold had fought at least 8 battles, and had slain around 8 kings. He
Wow.
was slowly uniting
Shouldn't
the
he
kingdom
be
of
called
Norway,
the Kingslayer
making it
then?
known that he would be its king. To the north in Naumodal were 2 brother kings, Herlag and Hrulag, and they had been
Okay.
kings for 3 summers. They would
So
soon
3
receive
years.
news that King Harold was coming upon them with an army. When Herlag knew that Harold was close, he would commit suicide by having his men collapse a mound
Okay.
into him. His brother Hrulag would meet King Harold
Why would he
and gave
commit
him his whole
suicide?
kingdom and offered to enter his service. King Harold then symbolically took a sword
Okay.
and fastened it to Hrulag's belt and bound a shield to his neck and made him an earl over the district of Normundal. After the encounter with Harold,
Okay.
Hrulag was no longer a king, but an earl. This reflects Harold
at
was a
least.
man of mercy. If you pledged him fealty, you would step down as king and become an earl.
Okay.
If you fought, you would die
You
by
would
the
die,
sword.
yeah.
King Harold then returned to
I-
Throinheim.
I
Wait.
think everybody would take the second option. At least I would, because I still could live and maybe even plot to replace him. If I'm dead, I can't do anything, so...
He dwelt during the winter. He would afterwards regard it as his home. In the winter, he took to wife Asa, the daughter of El-Hakon
She looks
Grojotgardsson.
good.
In the winter and
That's a
spring,
Hakon's daughter.
he commissioned the building of great Viking longships.
Ah, okay.
He would build a
good.
great dragon ship and had it fitted out in the most splendid way. He showed his
Lots of stuff they say here reminds me of Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones. Because, like, the Battle of the 5 armies, they had 5 kings and stuff. All this sounds so familiar. And, like, here, the dragon ship, like, there's a dragon here, so, yeah.
his best warriors the boat, as they were hand-picked to be his household guard. The best men from every district were appointed, with many of them being berserks. Eventually,
Berserks. I have heard of them, and I have another video coming about them.
King Harold took his army to Mor. Huntiof was the name of the king who ruled the district of Mor. His son was named Solvcloth, and both were great warriors.
Solvcloth?
When they heard Harold was approaching, they gathered an army and fought against him in a great battle. Harold would go on to win the battle, and King Huntiof was slain, but his son managed to escape the massacre. Harold was getting a reputation for killing kings and taking their lands,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of Norway
Of course he
was
did.
very wary of him,
That's
as his
good.
power and influence was growing, day by day.
Day by day, really? Wow.
Solvcloth,
The fall of kings.
the surviving prince from the Battle of Solskell, and his friend, King Arnvid, had passed the winter plundering and killing many of Harold's men, and he was making his revenge known.
Okay, that's good.
Solvcloth asked King Udbjorn for help. In his plea, he said,
Outbjorn.
"It is now clear that we have but one course to take, and that is to rise, all, as one man against King Harold. For we have strength enough, and fate must decide the victory. For as the other condition of becoming his servants, that is no condition for us, who are not less noble than Harold. My father thought it better to fall in battle for his kingdom than to willingly go into Harold's service." Solv's speech convinced King Udbjorn to join his cause, and together they gathered a massive army.
Okay.
They would soon receive news that Harold was on the move from the north, and they prepared to go to war. This battle would be on the water, and the two sides lashed their ships together stem to stem,
I love water
with King
battles.
Harold's ship being against King Arnvid's ship.
That must have been
The ships would
amazing
collide,
to watch.
and a savage battle would ensue. It is said that King Harold was raging with anger, and went forward and slew so many men that they were driven off their ship into the waters.
Oh, wow.
Harold soon boarded King Arnvid's ship,
Okay.
and there
Okay.
Arnvid was slain.
Yeah,
His
of course.
friend Solv, however, once again fled, and lived to fight another day.
Yes.
Many of Harold's earls would fall in this battle. Solv would afterwards become a great sea king.
Okay.
After the sea battle, King Harold moved to subdue more, but Vemund, King Udbjorn's brother, still had land that Harold needed. News reached Harold's earls that King Vemund was staying in a guest house. Earl Ragnvald surrounded the house and set fire to it.
Ooh.
King Vemund was
Okay.
burned alive, along with 90 men.
Oh shit. That's
The
a bad
only
death.
thing that would unite Norway was blood, and Harold knew this. His brutality to those who opposed him was becoming known. Earl Ragnvald and Harold would have a meeting along with the Ulfhednar warriors
Okay.
to decide what kingdom to conquer next. Harold highly valued the warrior shamans and kept them as his
Okay.
household
The
guard.
Ulf.
In the Hraffsmal, it states, "They are called wolfskins, who
Wolfkings.
bear
Okay.
bloody shields in combat. They redden spears when they come to war.
Okay.
There at Harold's court, they are seated together. There I believe he, the sovereign, wise and understanding, may entrust himself to
Okay.
men of courage alone, those who hew into a shield." Harold would use these men as shock troops, and with the
Makes
Ulfhednar
sense.
on his side,
Yeah. They
it's no
look,
wonder he won so many battles.
They look fearsome. So.
News would soon
I
reach
probably
Harold
would
that the people and kings of
be afraid
4
of them.
different lands were gathering, and they were bringing together ships and weapons, and a great body of men.
How many
Harold would too
kingdoms
assemble his
have
forces,
been there in
as he
Norway
knew that
at that
this would
time?
be the biggest and greatest battle of his life. The kings would all meet for this great battle, and it would be the bloodiest battle in all of Harold's campaign to unite Norway. Ships would ram into each other, and men would die. First, King Eirik fell. Then, King Sulk was killed,
Okay.
with his brother Earl Sot. Thor Hackland, who was a great berserk, had laid his ship
Great
against
berserk,
King Harold's, and he launched a desperate attack, entering the state of the berserker. But Harold's own
Okay.
Ulfhednar slew him, and every man on his ship. In the
Oh,
Grettis saga,
That's lots of them.
it also describes the scene at the Battle of Hafrsfjord. It states, "King Harold made for Thoril's ship, knowing him to be a terrible berserk and very brave. The fighting was desperate on either side. Then the king ordered his berserks, the men called wolfskins, forward. No iron could hurt them, and when they charged, nothing could withstand them. Thoril defended himself bravely and fell on his ship valiantly.
Okay. So his
King
sent his
Kjolf
troops
fled,
in.
as did all of his men, and the battle was won by Harold. He
Yeah.
had just killed many kings, great berserkers and earls, and his vow was now complete. He met no opposition in Norway, for all his opponents were either his subjects or had been slain.
Yes.
King Harold was now the sole king
Oh.
of the whole of Norway,
So now he can
and he
get a
managed to
lady.
conquer all of the land when he was still in his 20s or early
In
30s.
his 20s.
He remembered what that proud girl had said to him all those years
Yes.
ago, and he sent for her. He would then take her into his bed, and they would have 5 children together. King Harold had
5
many
children.
wives and many children. The sagas name anywhere from 11 to 20,
20.
with his favourite son being his eldest, Eric Bloodaxe. Now that he was
Those
king of
names are
Norway,
so great.
the time had come. King Harold got into a bath, and Earl Ragnvald would now cut his hair, which had been uncut and uncombed for 10 years.
Oh wow.
Once his hair was finally cut and combed, all agreed that he had the most beautiful head of hair in the land. Ragnvald would then give him a distinguishing name, Harald Fairhair.
Okay.
Harald would rule all of Norway until he was 80 years old.
80 years.
Once
wow.
he reached the age of 80, he would co-rule with his son Eric Bloodaxe and handed him much of his supreme power. Harald would die 3 years later due to old age,
Wow.
in approximately the year 933. Harald's takeover of Norway was bloody. He killed countless kings, earls and jarls over a 10-year period.
Wow.
He was the veteran of 100 battles, and if there was an easier way to overcome his enemies rather than in war, such as burning his enemies alive while they were asleep, he would.
Yes,
He would
was
use his berserks
ruthless.
and the Ulfhednar warriors in battle in order to overcome any enemy, for they were his most powerful allies in combat. He gathered the best of them from all the different regions in Norway, and against him and his warriors, no army would stand a chance.
Yeah.
Harald himself was also an incredible warrior. He never lost a battle and would
Never.
fight amongst his men from a
wow.
young age. So the real Harald Fairhair took Norway by blood.
Yes.
He didn't become king by jarls voting like in the TV show Vikings, and he was the leader of his own armies, becoming the first king of Norway by uniting it with a decade of warfare. So let me know your thoughts on Harald Fairhair in the comment sections down below. If you enjoyed the video,
I did.
make sure to like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you all soon for another history profile.
Yes, bye. Okay, I like this one. It was really great to know about him. He was bloody and he was ruthless. Holy shit. He killed people in his sleep. Well, he burned them while they were sleeping. So that's hard action to take, but he took it and it paid off. And those two videos here look amazing. The Descendants of... Maybe I watch one of them later. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.